When Paul called me that afternoon, I thought he was joking. But he wasn't. 3 charter buses had just pulled up and dumped more than 100 strangers through my locked gate. By the time I made it up the mountain, my private cabin looked like the county fair, music blaring, kids jumping in bounce houses, strangers drinking by my pool, and a giant banner thanking me by name for sponsoring the whole thing. That's when I realized someone was trying to steal my land right out from under me. I should back up. My name's John Davis. I'm a software engineer in Denver, and a few years ago I bought this little slice of peace in Vista Crest, a quiet mountain community in Colorado. It's my escape, the one place I can breathe away from the city. The HOA here has always been pushy, but tolerable, until Margaret Lopez became president. Margaret is, well, if you've ever dealt with a full-blown HOA, Karen, multiply that by 10. Clipboard glued to her hand, lips pursed, voice pitched like she's scolding children every time she speaks. She thrived on rules she mostly made up herself. Still, nothing prepared me for what Paul told me that day. "John," he said, almost whispering, "your gate's been cut, buses rolled in. There are food trucks, DJs, porta-potties. They're throwing a festival on your property right now. I drove 2 hours like a maniac. My security cameras? Dead. Feed cut. When I pulled up, my stomach dropped there. It was my padlock sheared clean with bolt cutters tossed to the side. And beyond the gate, 100 strangers dancing, barbecuing, kids splashing in my pool, all acting like they owned the place. And the kicker, a massive vinyl banner stretched across my cabin porch. Thank you, John Davis, for supporting the community. I was speechless. People waved at me like I was the guest of honor. And then Margaret strutted over, beaming, announcing to everyone, "This is our generous co-host, John," I snapped. "Margaret, you broke into my property. You cut my damn lock." She barely blinked. "Oh, John, don't be dramatic. It's all legal. It's for the community. We've got permits, insurance, everything's above board." I stormed inside only to find my outlets powering 2 food trucks, my garden beds crushed under inflatable bounce houses. The hardwood floors I'd refinished last month tracked with mud and beer. Even my fridge rated cases of soda pulled out to serve the guests. Every corner of my home had been hijacked. Then Margaret pulled out a folder thick with paperwork, contract signatures, even my own name scribbled at the bottom. "See? You agreed to this partnership," she chirped, like she'd caught me forgetting something. I froze. My signature was there, shaky but convincing. For a second, my chest tightened. Did I sign something without reading? Did I miss some HOA clause? Everyone was laughing, dancing, thanking me while I stood there feeling like a villain for even wanting my own space back. That night I lay in bed at the cabin, wide awake, staring at the ceiling while the bass from the DJ shook the walls. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was selfish. The kids were happy, the family's grateful. Was I really going to shut this all down just to keep my garden intact? I hated myself for even questioning it. This was my land, my home. And yet I felt powerless. Then Paul came knocking, holding his phone. "John, you're not crazy," he whispered. He showed me photos he'd been taking for months. Valentine's, Easter, Mother's Day, 6 different times Margaret had run nearly identical events all on my property while I was away in Denver. She'd been pulling in money too, charging vendors, taking donations. He estimated she pocketed close to 50 grand. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. This wasn't community spirit. This was theft. I picked up the phone and called the sheriff. When Sheriff Miller arrived, Margaret practically skipped to his side, shoving those contracts into his hands. "It's all official, officer. John and I are partners. We've got liability coverage, vendor permits, a full schedule of events." For a moment, even he looked impressed. The papers were that polished. But then he glanced at me. I held up Paul's photos. "These are 6 different illegal festivals. She cut my lock today to host another. None of this was ever approved by me." Something shifted. They searched Margaret's SUV, and that's where the house of cards collapsed. A binder sat in the trunk labeled Vista Crest Business Records Year 1. Inside 5-year projections, vendor contracts, a mailing list of 400 emails, even tax notes, all under my name as co-owner. She wasn't just freeloading, she was building a business on the bones of my property. The neighbors who'd been clapping along just hours earlier turned furious. Parents shouted, "You used our kids for your scam." The HOA secretary, who Margaret had paraded around as her assistant, broke down, crying she wasn't a secretary at all, just Margaret's daughter-in-law forced to sign fake documents to keep peace in the family business. And then came the most insane revelation. Margaret had filed paperwork for adverse possession, basically trying to claim legal ownership of my cabin and land. She thought all she needed was continuous use for 18 months. Too bad she misread the law, it's 18 years. The sheriff called in the county fraud unit. Within weeks, Margaret faced a mountain of charges: forgery fraud, trespassing, theft of services, tax evasion, conspiracy to seize property. At the hearing, she stood there smirking, saying, "I did it for the community." The judge cut her off cold. "No, ma'am, you did it for yourself." The verdict came swift: 3 years in prison, restitution of $47,000, 5 years probation after release, banned from ever serving on any HOA board again. I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I just stood in the back of that courtroom, hands in my pockets, finally breathing like the weight of a mountain had been lifted off my chest. My cabin was mine again. And if there's one thing I learned from all of it, it's this: never underestimate how far a petty tyrant will go when they think nobody's watching.